The air was thick with tension, and I could feel the hairs on the back of my neck standing on end. The crate, with its lid slightly ajar, seemed to beckon me closer, yet every instinct screamed to turn back. The silence was broken only by the sound of my own ragged breathing as I slowly reached out to touch the crate. I leaned in closer, trying to see what was inside, when suddenly, the crate shifted. Winter had a way of sinking into your bones, and on this particular night, the cold was relentless. Snow had been falling for hours, covering the town in a thick white blanket. Since it was around midnight, the roads were empty, silent except for the crunching sound beneath my truck's tires as I made my way to the warehouse on the edge of town. The old warehouse was a relic from another era, creaking and groaning under the weight of time and weather. My job was simple: check the inventory, ensure everything was in order, and keep an eye out for anything unusual. The night shift was tough, but the pay was pretty good, especially since nobody else wanted the hours, and I was always available. The warehouse was usually quiet at night, the silence only broken by the hum of the dim overhead lights and the occasional creak of the building settling in the cold. It was just me, alone, with only the howling wind outside. But tonight, the silence felt oppressive. As the night wore on, the lights started to flicker, casting the shadowy corners of the warehouse into an uneasy darkness. I pushed through the aisles, checking off items on my list, my breath visible in the cold air. My flashlight was my only true guide. Everything was proceeding as expected until I reached the back of the warehouse, where a stack of old crates had been stored for who knows how long. I was never one to scare easily, but I hated this area. Something about this area always felt eerie, too quiet, too still. The squeaking of my boots against the floor echoed through the vast, empty space. As I cautiously approached the large crate, a sickening stench, what I can only describe as a mix of sulfur and decay, suddenly filled the air, making my stomach churn. A strange feeling crept over me, as if I was being watched, like something was lurking just beyond the edge of the flashlight's beam. The air was thick with tension, and I could feel the hairs on the back of my neck standing on end. The crate, with its lid slightly ajar, seemed to beckon me closer, yet every instinct screamed to turn back. The silence was broken only by the sound of my own ragged breathing as I slowly reached out to touch the crate. I leaned in closer, trying to see what was inside, when suddenly, the crate shifted. For a split second, everything was still. Then, a deafening screech tore through the stillness, so loud and terrifying it made my blood run cold. Before I could react, something large and powerful burst through the crate, slamming into me with the force of a freight train. I was thrown to the ground, my flashlight slipping from my grasp and skidding across the concrete floor. Though I couldn't quite see what it was, I could tell that whatever had escaped from the crate was big, immensely strong, and filled with a malevolent energy. In the confusion, I hit my head hard, and for a moment, everything went dark. When I finally regained consciousness, I was disoriented, my head throbbing with pain. The first thing I noticed was the cold air biting at my skin, and the sound of the wind was louder than before. I struggled to sit up, realizing that the warehouse door was now wide open, letting in a gust of frigid air and a flurry of snow. My flashlight was nowhere to be seen, and the only light came from the open door, casting long, eerie shadows across the floor. I didn't know what had attacked me, and I didn't want to stick around to find out. My heart raced as I scrambled to my feet and bolted for the door, the snow crunching under my boots as I ran. I didn't stop until I reached my truck, the engine sputtering to life as I peeled out of the lot, not daring to look back. The next morning, I called my boss to explain what had happened. He laughed it off, dismissing my story as the result of an overactive imagination, or maybe a bump to the head. He didn't believe a word of it, and I couldn't blame him. It sounded ridiculous, even to me. Whatever it wasn't something I could explain or even rationalize, but everything I told him was the truth. I never went back to that job. No amount of money could tempt me to return. Some things aren't worth the risk, and whatever lurked in that warehouse was one of them. To this day, I still don't know what it was that attacked me, what it was doing in that crate, and why it had to escape. But for sure and for certain, I won't be going back to find out.